The first factoring technique that I'm going to show you is called common factoring. Before you begin to factor any expression, you should always try to use this method because sometimes, even if it doesn't completely factor the expression, it gets you off on the right path, and it'll probably it might lead you to a different factoring technique as well. But the common factoring is a great place to start. So if we look at this first one, we have factored the following: 4c squared plus 6. We have 4c squared plus 6c. So how do we common factor? So we have two terms. This is a binomial. So what we're looking for is basically the greatest common factor between these two terms. So we can first look at the number. So what's the greatest common factor between 4 and 6? So we know that the greatest common factor between 4 and 6 is just going to be 2. And now we can do the same thing with the letters. So we have a c squared and we have a c. So the first term has 2 c's and the second one has 1. So we can take 1 out, or factor 1 out. So now we open up the bracket, and what we put inside the brackets is what's left over. So now we divide each of the terms that we have in the initial expression by what we factored out. So what is 4c squared divided by 2c? It's going to be just 2c. So in other words, 2c multiplied by 2c is 4c squared. Then we do 6c divided by 2c, which is going to be just plus 3. Okay, and we're finished. You can check to see if it's right. All you need to do is expand it out. So basically what we did in the last video, right, which was basically the opposite of factoring. And I mentioned that it would be important or useful / helpful in checking your answers. So if you did 2c times 2c, you get 4c squared, and then 2c multiplied by 3 gives you plus 6c. So we indeed did it correctly. So let's look at another one. So now this time we have a trinomial. We have 3 terms, but the process stays the same. So we first find the greatest common factor between the coefficients, or the numbers. So we have -5, -10, and 5. So the greatest common factor is 5, but we're going to take out a -5 because it's preferable to have the first term being positive. So the only way that's going to happen is if we take out a -5. So we'll take out a -5, and now we look at the letters. So the first term has an a squared, second term has an a, and the third term doesn't have an a. So because they all don't have an a in common, we can't take out any letters. So we can only take out the -5. So now we open up the brackets and we do the same thing we did in the previous example. So now we do -5a squared divided by -5, which is just a squared. -10a divided by -5 is going to be plus 2a. And then 5 divided by -5 is going to be just -1. Okay, and then we're done, and again we can check. So -5 times a squared is -5a squared. -5 multiplied by 2a is -10a, and -5 multiplied by -1 is plus 5. So we have done it correctly. Final example. So same process, let's look at those coefficients. -12, -20, and -16. So what's the greatest common factor? They're all divisible by 4, it looks like. So we're going to take out a -4. So again, we want that leading term to be positive. Well, they're all going to be positive in this case. So we'll take out a -4. And next, we're going to look at the letters. So now let's look at the x's. We have an x3 in the first one, x in the second one, and an x squared in the third one. So we can only take out one x because the second term only has an x term. And now we look at the y's. So there's a y squared, and a y squared. So because there's only a single y in the first term, we can only take out a single y. Okay, now we can open up those brackets. So now we divide, so negative 12x cubed y divided by negative 4xy is going to give us 3x squared. Right? Because x cubed divided by x is just x squared. It's an imaginary 1 there. And when you divide bases with the same exponents, you just subtract the exponents. So 3 subtract 1 is 2. Okay, next, the second term, we have negative 20xy squared divided by negative 4xy. So we're going to get plus 5. And then plus 5y, it looks like, because we only have 1x. X divided by x is just 1, and y squared divided by y is just y. And then the final term, we have negative 16x squared y squared divided by negative 4xy, so we're going to get plus 4xy. So again, let's just double check again. So let's multiply through. So negative 4xy times 3x squared is negative 12x cubed y. And negative 4xy multiplied by 5y is negative 20xy squared. And negative 4xy multiplied by 4xy is going to be negative 16x squared y squared. So it all checks out, and we are finished.